Hi everybody, I hope you're well. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and New Year. Welcome to the Sew Essential vlog. It's our first vlog of 2020 and I'm really excited about the year ahead, particularly about sewing, obviously. So I just wanted to do a quick video today where I shared some ideas with you of how to kickstart your Sewjo, because if, like me, over Christmas you really did manage to switch off and relax and recuperate, that's a wonderful feeling, but it can mean that I didn't do any sewing at all. Like, I love my sewing, but I didn't do any at all. I just felt like I needed a good break and a good rest. But obviously now the new year's here, I want to get back into it, not because I feel I should or I have to, but because I know it brings me a lot of joy and it really helps me stay grounded and helps me with my mental health. It helps me stay feeling really positive and helps me to relax. It gives me a bit of me time. I'm a busy mum with two children, and obviously I work in my family business, so that's all very demanding at times, but sewing really helps me with all of those things, and that's why I want to focus on kickstarting my Sewjo and helping you to kickstart yours. I didn't want to do a New Year's resolution type thing, because actually sometimes I think they can feel a little bit negative, as if we don't feel we're good enough and we need to improve ourselves and we need to be better. And actually, you know, I think we're all pretty awesome. Anyone who sews, bravo for like taking up such a wonderful hobby, and rather than being tough on ourselves and focusing on what we haven't done, I think it's nice to focus on why we do it, why we enjoy it, and then get ourselves feeling excited about it again. So I hope that makes sense, and I'll get started now with my ideas for kickstarting your Sewjo. So the first one is to reflect. I think in this busy, fast-paced world that we live in today, we don't often have much time to just slow down and think and look at what we've achieved. We're always looking at that next thing, that next goal. Where do we want to be in 5 years' time? But actually, how about just taking a look back at what you have achieved in the last year? And if you look back over what you've sewn in the last year, that can be a really positive thing, and you can realise actually you achieved a hell of a lot in the previous year. Now for me, I sewed a lot of garments last year, but for me it's not really even about the quantity or the quality of those garments that I sewed. I did sew a lot and I was quite proud of the quality of the garments that I produced, but for me the thing that was really important about last year's sewing is I felt like I finally got to a point where I really understand what I want to wear on a day-to-day basis, what's going to work for me, and therefore I am wearing my handmade clothes more and more, like more days a week. I'm wearing handmade clothes. I'm buying less ready-to-wear clothes than I ever have done. So if you haven't made lots and lots of things in the previous year, perhaps don't worry about that. Perhaps focus on whether you, like me, have been able to make things that you wear more frequently, or perhaps you made one really awesome garment that you're super proud of. Perhaps you learnt some new skills or techniques last year and you felt really good when you learnt those. And I think just giving yourself the time to reflect on what you achieved, why it felt good, why you enjoyed it, all of those things help to remind us why we sew in the first place. So once you've done that and you've thought about that, the next thing I would suggest is getting some inspiration, and I get loads of this from looking on ready-to-wear clothes websites, or I don't really go to the shops very often, but perhaps you get time to do that. But I find it really inspiring to have a look at some of my favourite shops, and just see what things are in fashion at the moment and what things people are selling, and I love seeing them and thinking, oh, that would be so easy to make. I could totally make that dress. I could make that dress, and starting to get my ideas and inspiration flowing. I find that really helpful. Another way you can do that as well is by watching vlogs, sewing vlogs. There's lots of sewing vlogs out there. There's Instagram as well, with a huge online sewing community on Instagram, and I find those are great places as well to just get some inspiration, see what other people are making. It just sparks ideas, and he's really helpful to me to kind of come up with ideas of what I want to make next, which I then make a list of. I've got a book where I scribble things down. One thing I'd like to do this year is try and get a bit better at drawing, because I see some beautiful drawings out there that people do, and if you're somebody who's a bit artistic, this could be a really good way to get your Sewjo going as well, is just to start sketching out some of your ideas. And you could even like get swatches of the fabrics and stick those on and get quite creative, almost creating mood boards and that sort of thing. Just allowing yourself that time to really think about what you want to make and what works for you. Have a look at the gaps in your wardrobe. Have a think about, was there something that you really wanted to make last year that was a, you know, perhaps a really luxurious, frivolous make that you didn't get round to, and committing to doing that can really help. So yeah, that would be my next suggestion, is just embrace the inspiration out there and really start thinking about what projects you would like to make this year and start pulling those ideas together. Then I would suggest setting some goals, but like I said at the start of the video, I don't believe in setting goals because, oh, what I did last year wasn't good enough, or I'm not good enough. I believe in setting goals, things that you want to achieve for you, for nobody else, just because you think it would make you get that buzz that we talked about earlier in the video, where you feel really happy at the end of a project, or you feel great because you've learned a new skill, or you've finally made something that you've been talking about for a long time. So just set some realistic, achievable goals. It doesn't have to be making a wedding dress or something, you know, crazily adventurous like that. It could just be really simple, that you'll try and make one thing a month perhaps, or you'll learn how to do a bound buttonhole, or you'll have a go at sewing with knit and jersey fabrics for the first time. It could be any of those things, but it'll just give you a little bit of focus and encouragement, and particularly if you relate it to the reasons why you sew and why you enjoy sewing that we talked to you about at the beginning of the video, that will certainly help with making sure they're goals that will help drive that buzz and that enthusiasm as well. Is there anything that you'd like to learn this year? Perhaps you could finally sign up for a course or a class that you've been meaning to get round to and you haven't quite managed to, or you haven't wanted to spend the money, but you know, maybe now's a good time to think, actually I'm going to commit to that. I deserve to give myself that time and give myself that opportunity. If you're finding it hard to sew, perhaps you could set yourself a goal around setting small chunks of time aside, even if it's once a week. You say, I've got this little window of time that happens on a Wednesday evening, it's my time, I can set that aside and I can sew for an hour. That might help you just to get back into the swing of things, just having that little plan there. And then finally, really making it fun and easy, I think is important as well. If you're really struggling to get back into it, why not just choose a nice, what we like to call a palette cleanser in the sewing world. I've heard lots of people refer to it as this, and I think it's a great term to use. You know, just one of those super quick, easy makes, perhaps a tried and tested pattern that you've made before. You know you can make it really quickly, you know it fits, you haven't got to faff around with it. That can be a great way to just whip up a garment super quick and have something that you're really pleased with, and it'll just remind you about that feeling that you get when you're making it and when you finished it as well. So for me, that would be, I made a turtleneck. I made one just before Christmas actually, and I'm thinking maybe I need to make another one now, but it's a quick sew turtleneck pattern that I've made before. I was wearing it in the overlocker video that I shared with you over the Christmas period, and it took me just a few hours to make it because I'd made it before. It's an easy pattern, but it was great. I got such a buzz from wearing it all over the Christmas holidays. So yeah, that was a really good example of a palette cleanser. Another suggestion I've got, and this might not go down too well with some people, is how about tidying up your sewing space as well. Personally, I sew in the dining room most of the time, and I've got a sideboard and I've got the cupboards under that dedicated to my patterns and fabrics, so I haven't got a lot of storage space. And sometimes I finish a project late at night and I shove the stuff in there, and I'm not going to lie guys, it gets into a right mess. It gets an absolute state sitting there sometimes. And what I find is that between projects, just getting everything out and having a good tidy up and sort out and getting rid of anything that I don't need in there, any bits of rubbish or whatever, helps me to feel like I've got a clear mind, helps me to find patterns and fabrics perhaps that I haven't used that I might want to put to use. So that can be a really good, helpful thing to get you kick started with a bit of enthusiasm as well. You might come across an incredible piece of fabric that you totally forgot you had, or you might come across one of those tried and tested patterns I was talking about and think, oh yeah, this was great when I made this the first time. You might decide to whip it up again. And then the other thing in terms of keeping it fun as well is, how about just organising a fun sewing session with a sewing friend, if you've got any friends locally or that you've met perhaps on Instagram or at sewing meetups. You know, how about arranging to get together and do a bit of sewing? That can be really helpful as well. Plus there are loads and loads and loads of sewing meetups going on in the online sewing community as well. If you look on Instagram, there is actually an account for sewing meetups. There's actually I think probably if you looked at sewing events or sewing meetups, it would come up. But there's things that go on all over the country now, and in my experience, there's just nothing better than being surrounded by other people who are into sewing and who genuinely want to talk to you about it. I mean, it's one thing chewing my husband's ear off about all the amazing projects I'm going to make, but let's face it, he's never really going to be that interested. But when I can talk to other sewing folk about it and we can get into the real nitty-gritty details about seam allowances and, you know, different fabric types and all those sorts of things that we like to geek out about, that is just really motivating for me. And always I go home from those things desperate to get on my sewing machine and get started. So I hope that's helped you all. I hope that's given you some ideas if you are somebody who needs to get back into their rhythm again. Do pop on and have a look at our website. The link to our website and our blog is below, where you can see all of my makes, you can see all of our fabrics and patterns, which can help get you inspired as well. And then I am aiming to do a review of what I made last year as well. I'm hoping I can pull that together for you. It's going to be quite a big video, but I've got some ideas of how to make it work, so I hope I'll be sharing that with you soon as well. But yes, happy new year, lots and maybe happy and healthy for the year ahead, and let's have lots of lovely sewing. And if you like what you see today, please like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.